How you doing, guys? Big Mek Danskull here again today, back once again with another episode of Warhammer Thoughty. I'm just muting the mics on this, not the mics, sorry, the speakers, to make sure you don't get a massive amount of echo, because I think you might otherwise. Right, let me get my screen up. Oh, I'm streaming, it's amazing. Where's my pop-out chat? There we go. So, this is just an impromptu live Warhammer 40k video. Basically, I've recorded one. I recorded one about 20 minutes long on my phone, and I'm gonna have to actually open XSplit again, aren't I? Here we go. Yeah, right. So I've recorded one live on my phone, so I can see what's on the screen. So I recorded one live on my phone, like I said. Not live. I recorded one on my phone. It was about 20 minutes long. It was a lot longer than I intended to be, but of course, it wasn't, not of course, but the reason I'm doing this video is because I couldn't upload it. After it, well, it wouldn't finish processing, basically. It said, like, when I tried to do it in high quality, it said it said like there was 45 seconds remaining to upload, and it said that for probably about 20 minutes. So then I tried it in low quality, it said there was 20 seconds, let's say, remaining before the upload was, before the processing was complete. So I thought, you know what, right, let's just do a live one and get it done, get the job complete. So if you want to talk in the chat, feel free. I've got the chat open, yeah, chat about what I'm talking about if you can. But I probably won't be interacting with the chat too much. I'll get distracted by it. But I'm going to try not to interact with the chat too much, but comment on the video once it's not live anymore. I've got one watcher, one viewer, but that's probably me, isn't it? So I'm watching myself. That's it. Fantastic. No worries. So this video is all about practical hobby purchases, practical hobby products. Firstly, let me say this video is inspired by Alex Attempts Tabletop. He has a regular weekly show where he talks about various things, and he talked about practical hobby products or purchases a few months back now, I think it was. So he's the reason I'm doing this video now, so make sure you go check out his channel. There is a link in the description below. Oh my god, I'm killing my brushes. Just realised my brushes were being crushed by a saw blade. It's only very light though. So yeah, I've got loads of tools and stuff in front of me just to chat about practical hobby purchases and the ones that I specifically make. So I might as well get started, shall I? Let's talk about, so practical hobby purchases, what am I talking about? I'm not talking about the actual sprues. I'm not talking about models or anything like that. Nothing like that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the tools you use to cut things off the sprues and to get them painted, to clean them up, blah, 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 blah. So, what am I talking about? Firstly, I'm talking about, I thought I didn't have them here then, things like clippers. You can use wire snips. You can use GW specific clippers, which are supposed to be really good, but they are very expensive, so I'm not willing to pay that price for, you know, what is essentially maybe a slightly better product, because these do a fine job of just snipping things and getting it nice and close to the piece as well. Anyway, so how you doing, David? George, how you doing, mate? Yes, so wire snips and stuff like that, that's what I use for clipping things off the sprue. And then what you want to do is clean up your pieces off the sprue. Now GW make this, it's a mold line remover. It's basically a piece of metal that's been encased in like a handle. You can see the metal runs all the way through there. It's like a bar of metal basically. It's got a curve there and it's straight there. So if you want to scrape a mold line off of something straight, you do it there like that. Or if you've got like a Space Marine leg, for argument's sake, you turn it around like that. The reason I said Space Marine leg is because I've just been listening to the Geno 5.2 podcast, and they said specifically about this. It's great if you've got like a Space Marine's leg. You get the curve to the right point on the curve, and then it's just nice. It doesn't flatten out that bit of the miniature that is supposed to be curved. Yeah, so it's a great tool. It really is. I think it's £10 or thereabouts from GW. It's pretty expensive for what it is, really. It's just a bit of machined metal. It's pretty expensive for what it is, and there are things that will do a very similar job for you. Things like this dental tool that I've dropped. This dental tool. So I think it's like a dental or sculpting tool. I think I actually got this off my friend who is watching live now. So thank you very much. And this does essentially the same job. It's a piece of metal. You can just drag it along, and it'll scrape off a little layer of plastic there. You can probably just see on that there's a tiny bit of plastic. Tell you what, if I put it against my chair, you can definitely see it there. So there's a tiny amount of plastic come off there, and that is essentially what the mold line remover does. Now this has got a nice shape in it, so you can keep your curves on your models and all sorts of stuff like that, because you know everyone wants to keep the curves, don't they? They should do anyway, because everyone loves curves. So yeah, the mold line removers and stuff like that, they're fine. The GW ones are great, but you don't always have to use the GW tools. Let me just get rid of this text at the bottom. No, you know what? I'll keep it up in case anyone else joins in. They'll know what I'm talking about straight away. Just gonna have a sip of my coffee as well. Oh, thought it went in my beard then. That was my Rogue Trader mug, which I'm sure if IDICBeer joins us, he'll be very jealous of. So what else am I talking about now in practical hobby purchases? So I'm talking about knives as well. If you've clipped off a bit of sprue, clipped a miniature off a bit of sprue, and then you want to when I was a kid, I only ever had a knife, really, not a scalpel like this, but just like a Stanley blade or something like that, and I used to just clip the miniatures off the sprue like that, but they're not ideal. What these are better for is actually cutting things, like if you've got a bit of plastic that you just need to scrape off once it's off the mold, once it's off the sprue rather, then these are ideal, really, for stuff like that, for cutting bits of card, bits of terrain. You can use them to remove mold lines as well, but you're more likely to take off with a knife, because it's sharper. You're more likely to take off a big chunk of the miniature that you actually wanted to keep. So, you know, knives are useful though, so definitely a hobby purchase I'd recommend. Moving on. Now, you've got all your bits off the sprue. What do you want to do next? Some people clean the plastic sprues. I don't personally, because for me the GW plastic sprues, I've never found them to have like mold remover on or anything like that, like resin stuff does. But yeah, the plastic sprues. What you want to do next is build your miniature, so you're going to want something like glue. This is super glue. I've got some plastic glue here. So the difference between super glue and plastic glue is that plastic glue melts the material, melts the plastic, and then it helps it bond together, effectively like a weld, if you like. I mean, I guess that's not what welding is. Welding, you introduce a third material. So I guess it's not like a weld really, but it bonds it together. So that essentially is then one piece of material, one piece of plastic after that, and it's less likely to break if you drop the miniature or anything like that. Whereas super glue, some people prefer to use super glue and only ever use super glue because it sets a lot quicker. That's one of the benefits of super glue. But you can use super glue if you're sticking resin to plastic, or if you're sticking metal to plastic, anything like that. Okay, next after that. So I mentioned working with resin. You will want to wash your resin before you work with it, because more often than not there's mold release on it, and you can touch the resin and it feels greasy. This is just a gate off a bit of a Forge World knife. But what you might want to cut some of the bigger gates is a razor saw. So say if this was a piece of, I wanted that half and not that half, then I could just saw down the middle like that, and then it'd be perfect, be fantastic. So hobby saw, if you're working with resin, if you're thinking of getting into the Horus Heresy, or just buying a load of Forge World kits, if you like the Deathcore of Krieg miniatures, something like that, or you want just a specific Forge World kit just as a one-off, then I definitely recommend getting a hobby saw. Most people buying Forge World stuff are a bit deeper into the hobby than just your average Joe who walks into Games Workshop on a once a month to buy his White Dwarf, like me, hey. But I do have lots of Forge World kits as well now. I need to get working on them, because the thing with Forge World is they're great with customer service if it's been a reasonable amount of time since you bought the miniature. But I've got like a Forge World kit that's about 10 years old. A Sisters of Battle Repressor, so that one they probably won't help me out with if anything's wrong with it. Yeah, so you've cut your bit of resin in half, and it's a bit rough and rare where you've cut it. So you'll want some files, really. Some files, some sandpapers, different grades of sandpaper, just to smooth it out, to get it nice and flat, so when you stick it together, it's a nice flush fit, that sort of thing. If it's not a nice flush fit though, you might want some of this green stuff. Green stuff's fantastic. It's basically two-part. Let's go back actually. Let's go back. Let's forget about the green stuff, because I mentioned two-part. So I mentioned I was talking about glues earlier. If you're working with Forge World stuff, with big Forge World kits, you'll probably want to use like a two-part epoxy glue. I don't know if it's a glue or what, but in the UK, things like Araldite. And in the US, I think there's one called JB Weld, which you can probably get on the internet in the UK, but it's harder to find in stores and stuff like that. So Araldite in the UK is your best bet. Two-part epoxy, I think it's resin basically, and it's you mix the parts together. It sets within 5 minutes, and it sets rock solid. So it gives you a proper tight bond on your Forge World or your resin pieces. But yeah, like I said, once you've stuck the bits together, you may need to fill some gaps, so green stuff is perfect for that. Now there's this green stuff, which is yellow stuff. Yellow stuff, I'm looking on the camera so it's confusing me, and blue stuff. So the yellow stuff and blue stuff, what you do, cut a bit of yellow stuff off one side, cut a bit of blue stuff off the other side, roll it into a ball, and then it works essentially the same way as the two-part epoxy resin, like the Araldite and stuff. So one's the one's the putty and one's the setting agent. So that's why you mix them together, and then it goes harder over time. It takes a while to go completely solid, but yeah, that's great for gap filling. There's also liquid green stuff, which is essentially, as far as I can tell, it's basically like really thick paint. It's probably not. It probably is like a liquid form of this sort of thing, but it acts like a really thick paint basically. You can fill that into like bubble holes and stuff like that you tend to get on resin miniatures. Yeah, you can fill that in there, or stick that on there, like put it over like a layer of paint, and then sand it down, essentially like a polyfiller, like a something you might fill a small crack in a wall with before you paint the wall, that kind of thing. That's essentially what liquid green stuff is supposed to be used for, I think. Yeah, so we've done all that bit, the building and stuff like that, and then once you've built your miniature, it's all ready to be spray primed. Well, you don't have to spray prime it. You can use brush on primer, but I personally always go for spray primer. You don't have to go for an expensive spray primer, and that brings me on to another link I put in the description below. So the description, but I'm just conscious now of the fact that I've been looking at myself on screen, because I love looking at myself. But I will try and look at the camera. Yeah, primers. We don't have to buy expensive spray primers. Now GW's XL can, great value that, but it was only out over Christmas. This is Chaos Black Primer from GW, and it's a primer and base layer basically. I tend to use it as a base layer as well. I know on Duncan Rhodes' videos for Warhammer TV, he says always put like Chaos Black undercoat if you're painting a black miniature. You use this spray and then you do a Chaos Black undercoat, because it gives you a slightly different finish, the brush on paint to the spray paint. But I'm quite happy to do that. I'm not that fastidious about things. So there's that one. One you've heard me mention in loads of other videos probably is a Halford's Grey spray primer. I love this stuff. It covers really well. Again, I was listening to the Geno52 podcast. I don't know, it's just a coincidence that they've been talking about hobby products in their on their podcast this time. Yeah, they said this stuff, apparently it bonds to the sort of stuff that it sticks better to the sort of stuff that's used in mold release. So if you are priming 4-year-old miniatures and stuff like that, you're probably better with something like Halford Spray Primer, because it reacts less to the mold release. So because it's designed for cars and stuff, it's going to go on better to, if there's any residue of mold release and stuff on there, it's going to go on better than that. Yeah, so there's another one that I've used in the past. I don't use this often, but now and again, if I really need some primer, I'll nip to the pound shop and I'll buy some of this stuff. Matte Black Spray. It's £1 because it's from the pound shop. Yeah, so this one's empty, as you can probably tell by the noise it's making when I rattle it. And it's good. Like I said, there's another link in the description below. I don't know if I actually said what the link was. So it's for a video Luke's APS did. Luke at Luke's APS, Affordable Painting Service is what that stands for. He's done he always does videos on you know, how to get into the hobby for cheap and cheap alternatives for stuff, but cheap, but not necessarily I was going to say less good, not necessarily bad products, but you know, cheaper products or cheaper ways of doing things, but to a similar level of result kind of thing. And yeah, I've linked a video in the description below that is him talking about spray primers and how there's no real bad spray primers out there. They tend to be it tends to be the people using them, how you're using them, that's just slightly off. So he mentions about heating up your primers in warm water, just to help the stuff inside mix better. Shake it for plenty of time and stuff like that. So yeah, check out the link in the description below for his videos. Once you've sprayed your miniatures, you'll want to paint them with brushes, this sort of thing. So there's a few different types of brushes. This one's a bit worse for wear actually. I tend to use these brushes. This is a sort of brush you can get from the Works. In the UK, the Works is like a craft / bookstore / it's only like a little store, but it's nationwide, I think. But yeah, they sell a variety of products, craft books, but they're like a jack of all trades, master of none. They don't sell amazing books that like everyone's after. They don't have a top 100 book chart as far as I'm aware. They might do, I don't know. But they sell a lot of craft products as well, a lot of, you know, basic art supplies, stuff like that. And you can get these sorts of brushes, about 10, 15, maybe 20 in a pack, for $1.99 or something like that, you know, less than a £5 for loads of brushes. So these brushes, I love these because you can just be as rough as you like with them because you're not paid much for them. When you compare them to the price of the GW brushes, you know what, some of GW's brushes aren't that bad, cost-wise. But I don't know what I pay for them actually. I tend to just go in, get excited, get a pot of paint and get a brush if I get a GW brush. But yeah, some of the GW brushes I don't like because they seem to fray earlier and stuff like that. It may just be the way I'm using them, but yeah, that's why I prefer sometimes the cheaper brushes from places like the Works, or you know, an art supply shop. Kids paint brushes, basically, they're the ones I love. And then I've got something like this Army Painter brush. Now, one good thing about this is you put it on a flat surface because of the way it is. It's not a circle, it's not a cylinder. It'll just stay there because it's like a triangular shape. It won't roll away. I've got two Army Painter brushes. They're both like my fine detail brushes. This one has it got a rating on it? Just Kolinsky Masterclass it's called. And then this one is Wargamer the Psycho. The white one's the Psycho, which is a really thin end on the brush. Let's see if this will focus up close. Oh yes, look at that, lovely. So that's a really thin for like just fine edge highlighting. If I ever do any freehand work, I'll probably use that one. I will be doing some freehand work probably quite soon on one of my nights. I say quite soon. You know, it takes me ages to finish a project. And then there's things like dry brushes. One thing I like about Citadel's brushes is the dry brush range. They've got different sizes. They're, you know, you're going to be rough with the dry brush anyway, so they have to be designed for being used roughly. So Citadel's dry brushes, they're great. But again, you can get like these sorts of brushes in these brush packs from the Works. But there we go. That's brushes. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? I forgot about this. So this is a pin vise drill. I think it's called a pin vise drill. I don't know. Basically, you can drill into your miniatures. I have drilled the bolters out on these Space Marines. Yeah, drilled the ends of the bolters out. And you can also like drill up into a miniature's leg and then pin it to the base. If it's two different materials, or if you're working with metal miniatures, something like that, you might want to drill the limbs and then put pins in them to secure them to the base. Now, when I say pins, I often use paper clips. So that's a nice hobby purchase you might not think of right away. Yeah, so I use things like paper clips. You basically just cut a bit off with your wire snips or your sprue cutters. I mean, try not to use your sprue cutters for snipping paper clips, because you can see they get all battered at the end. You can probably see there, these are a bit chewed up, these ones now. I'll probably need some new ones soon. But yeah, that's another hobby purchase that is definitely, I think it's come in handy for me. I like to drill out most of my gun barrels and stuff like that. What else is in front of me now? There's not much else in front of me, to be honest. I've got a lighter in front of me. I don't smoke or anything, but if my plastic glue gets clogged up, there's a metal pin there, metal rod or whatever, where the liquid runs up the inside of, and then you just like do a quick one of them, and then you'll see a quick bit of flame at the end. But the only thing is, this is flammable liquid, so you know, try not to make sure the flame doesn't go into there. That's one thing I'd be scared of. But I've only recently started seeing people do that, which I found really interesting. And I was like, oh, I'm too scared to set my house on fire. But I've tried it, and it's worked a few times, and it's meant I've not had to go out and buy a new plastic glue any earlier than I would have liked. So I've got something else there now. I've got a whiteboard. This is what prompted this video, really. Because I went out and bought this after speaking to Craig from Kiblams last week. I've heard of Kanban boards in the past. I didn't really understand them. I didn't see what the necessity of them was. But basically, I'll turn this round, see if it can, because the light's going funny when yeah, that's a bit better. So let's pretend this is a whiteboard. A Kanban board is basically something you're using like on a production line system. And I think the origins of it are from Toyota factories in Japan. And like the storage area of the factory, it wouldn't know when the production line would want more of a certain thing, like more of a certain size, not more of a, I don't know, something like this. And then basically what one of the bosses decided to do was just make simple boards with columns on, and in the columns they'd have like a board with a job on, a job or a part or something like that, and then they move from column to column. Like, so this column might be, let's say, for argument's sake, the storeroom gives the production line 100 of a certain type of nut. So this column is 100, that'd be 50, that'd be 25, that'd be 10, and then when you get to that column it's 0, and you know they need more, that kind of thing. Basically, Kanban boards are designed to give you a good, reliable production system, I think. So what I intend to use it for is basically have a post-it note on each project I'm working on. Will have a post-it note. So for Captain Badrook, which I will be starting quite soon probably, he will be in the first column of cleaning and assembling. That'll be the first column. And then the next column will be base coating. The next column will be undercoating. The next column will be base coats. Then it'll be washes, and then it'll be weathering. How you doing, Bazza? Just joined us in the chat. Underdog Painting. Good to see you, mate. So yeah, so like base coats, washes, weathering, sealed or whatever. So that's the sort of thing I want. So I'll have on the board 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 6 projects at a time that I'll be working on, and they'll all be in different stages. So if I get home one night and I'm a bit tired, I don't want to do too much hobby, at least this way I can pick out what the easiest job will be, washing for example on a single miniature, and I'll do that because I know it'll be a quicker job than say edge highlighting or something like that. So that way I'm hoping it'll just help me do a little bit each night. Let's say I want to work on my Primaris Marines, because these need to be finished soon actually. Not just these, there's I've got, I think there's 21 Imperial miniatures in the kit, and I've got 5 of them to a decent level. What I might do for the WGO Wargamer Online Chronicles, WGO Chronicles, which I'm taking part in, is basically get them all to a tabletop standard, and then leave it there until I need to do a bit more work on them in the future. But then they can be in the column that says they need a wash next. They can be sat there for ages in the column that says they need a wash next, and I'll put them on a base as well, so I can just go to them as and when. Yeah, so this was really about practical hobby purchases, not about Kanban boards, but I started waffling on, didn't I? Yeah, so what are your practical hobby purchases? If you're in the chat now, don't say them because I'm about to wrap the video up. But yeah, what are your practical hobby purchases? Is there anything you really feel like you couldn't do without? Something like a Dremel tool, you know, a rotary tool, something like that. A heat gun, whatever. You know, there might be something that I've not thought of, you know, that I've not mentioned, like the paperclip sort of thing. It's a purchase that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a hobby purchase right away. You know, it's a bit stationary. You don't think, oh, I'll get that for my hobby. Definitely need that in your hobby purchase. I'm sorry if you can hear dogs barking at the minute. There's some going mental. They do this every so often. It's quite annoying. But, you know, there we go. Anyway, yeah, we'll leave it there, guys. I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. And I will see... Oh, wait a minute now. Wait a minute here. I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. And I'll see you on the battlefield. I forgot where I was looking then. I'll see you on the battlefield.